And then people were like, why is he telling Shaw not to go left when he passed it to Grealish and Grealish passed it to Kane? And I was
Yeah.
like, because Luke Shaw, he wanted Luke Shaw to score and shut up Mourinho. Because all Mourinho did before that, I'd say before the Ukraine game, there we go. It's live on YouTube. There we go. But yeah, basically we're live now anyway. But
That's all
basically
good.
he's basically just saying like I wanted Luke Shaw to score, so Mourinho literally gets he shuts up Mourinho basically. So I
Yeah.
was like, yeah, I get your reasoning. So imagine if Luke Shaw scores in the final for England today, that'd be crazy. And
He's
he
got his
literally just
chance.
he gets through, and everyone's just like, oh man, Luke Shaw is amazing. It's done it for England, but I don't really care. Like for me personally, I've said it on the podcast already, and I've said it on like our WhatsApp group as well. The fact that all these club notions have just been put aside.
Yeah.
Like I don't really care that Calvin Phillips is a Leeds player, Bukayo Saka is an Arsenal player, and everyone is just happy as an England fan right now. Like you don't really see, besides Arsenal fans that I see on Instagram and social media, and that they're all going on about Bukayo Saka, which is
Yeah.
great, but they're all going on about trying to say, "Oh, it's better than Sancho." It's like it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. That's
No,
that's that's how I see it personally.
the thing for me is I don't know if you've seen it. There's like the Arsenal fan TV podcast.
Yeah.
There's a guy on there. I don't know what his name is. He's not Robbie or anything. He's one of the old Englishmen, and he
Mm.
won't cheer Harry Kane goals.
Oh yeah, Lee Judges. I saw that.
Yeah,
That was crazy.
he
Like
refuses to cheer on or like celebrate Harry Kane goals.
he's like Harry Kane. He's done it again. I
Yeah,
remember seeing that. I'm like, you can't be like that as an Englishman. You're about to go into a final, and he's just sitting there with the Denmark go like this.
yeah, like there's what's anything in it. Everyone else
Yeah,
is screaming.
everyone else is screaming. They're going mad. The country's going mad. Lee's just there like, nah, it's not happening. It's not happening at all. But yeah, we're live. Everyone, thanks very much for watching our last preview for Euro 2020, and probably the best preview I'd say. It's the final. England versus Italy, 8 p.m., Wembley Stadium, and it's going to be an absolute bonanza. It's going to be fantastic to see how England face against Italy. And is Danny back again on the show? So, Danny, thanks for coming back. How have you been? How's your week been?
No worries, man. It's been good. It can get a whole lot better tonight, though. It can get a whole lot better tonight. Or I say tonight, it could be tomorrow morning. It can still be Monday night. It could be Tuesday night. It'll be the next 2 years or so. It'll be the best next 2 years because we'll have those bragging rights. Everyone's saying it. Everyone's like, oh, England fans won't be able to live it down. Well, yeah, when your country hasn't won anything in 55 years or even got to like an opportunity to win something in that long. Like, it was the first in our lifetime. Obviously, these kids growing up are so lucky. They've had two semi-finals and now a final in their lifetime. But England versus the world. It's not just Italy. It's England versus the world tonight. Everyone is cheering on Italy other than the English. And we've got to go and prove them what we're about and how we're going to go and win it today. So
Yeah, definitely. And I'm glad you mentioned the kids about how they're growing up now. Like my cousins growing up who are like 8, 9, 10, 11, whatever the age they are. They're basically going, oh yeah, England are a decent team. Like, no, you didn't go through the hard days like with us. You didn't go through the times of being knocked out to Portugal in consecutive tournaments, the time when Lampard scored against Germany and was disallowed, the time when we didn't even qualify in 2008. And going through all of these experiences has made it a lot more sweeter for us in our generation. But you can imagine from our like father's generation or our just the elder generation before of the 92 World Cup of not even qualifying for 92 Euros and not get into their
yeah,
96, the semi-final. Obviously, Gareth Southgate missing the penalty, but it's come full circle for us, and we're going to enjoy tonight. It's going to be a great game, and we've got a few more things on this little episode to talk about besides just the final. But obviously, we are going to start with the final. So, Danny, let's hear your first thoughts on Italy's setup against England. How do you kind of see them setting up, and do you think there's going to be any changes from Roberto Mancini and co?
I think that there has to be changes. Like from what I saw from the Italy-Spain game, they looked tired. They looked very, very tired. They played a couple of extra time matches. Obviously, the one against who are they playing against
Played
in
Spain in the
Wembley,
semi-final, and then they played Austria in the round of 16.
Austria. Yeah, so Austria again, extra time at Wembley. That was a long, hard game. A big physical team, Austria, and then the Spanish side again in extra time. Like, look, you're going to have to get this ball off these Spanish players and move the ball and go and chase it and go and win it back. And yes, you were on the front foot for 80 minutes, and now you're now trying to actually try and go and win the game. It's very, very difficult. And I think he has to make changes. There's one big change which I've spoken to a couple of Italian fans about it, and I don't think Immobile starts tonight.
Really?
I don't think Immobile starts. When Mancini, the first sub that Mancini will always go to is Belotti on for Immobile.
Yeah.
Now that's a sign. That's a sign, especially as Belotti would consider himself a bit more of a pit bull than Immobile, like one he's going to go and be quite physical against the defenders. You've got to really challenge Harry Maguire and John Stones tonight, or even Cole Walker if they go as a free. I think that's another talking point. I think England will go 5 at the back. So you need 1, if not 2, Italian strikers to go and be physical, to go and run after the game and try and put the English defenders under pressure. And I think Belotti does that more than Immobile. When was the last time Immobile scored? What, the group stages? Yeah.
Yeah, it's the group stages.
Yeah, he hasn't done much. He had that few bits of spells. Everyone's he's going to be the Golden Boot winner. He's going to go and win as many goals as possible. I now think that this is Belotti's chance to step up and really put the game to England 60, 70 minutes, and then they might bring on Immobile if they think, right, we're going to go to extra time here. Let's go and bring on a goal scorer. Let's go 2 up top. But
it's gonna be fun to see how Belotti actually does with starting, because Immobile have started every game but one. I think the Wales game, I think he didn't start.
I just think it's one of those things that is going to happen. I think they're going to run with it. I think they'll have Insigne and Chiesa either side of him to really try and get in behind our fullbacks. Again, if we talk about playing against the 5 at the back, you really want to try and get the attacking fullbacks forwards. The Italians will do. They'll want Shaw to go down the left-hand side. It's whether or not we go with Walker or we go with Trippier or we go with Reece James. That's another question.
Yeah,
I think if we want to really push, was it Lorenzo? Who's the left back for Italy?
So they've got Emerson from Chelsea and they've got Di Lorenzo, who's the right back.
Di Lorenzo. I think they'll probably go with Di Lorenzo. Do we want Reece James to try and help whoever Saka down that right-hand side and really try and get in behind and use speed and pace and power? Or do you want Kieran Trippier to be a little bit more defensive and then try and go that way? There are so many questions that Southgate's got to answer tonight, and it's just it's the worst job in world football. It's the worst job in world football. Everyone thinks they can do it. I'm in that position too. Everyone thinks they can do it, but when it comes down to it, you've got 11 players to pick 2 hours before kickoff, whenever it is, and if you win, you win. You're the hero. That's it. You're the tactical master. You're the masterclass of the game. If you lose, you're the worst human in existence. That's it. They'll have the whole nation behind you. If you win, if you don't, you're the worst Englishman of all time. It's just such a difficult job. So what do you think England will start with? I reckon Italy, like I said, Belotti will start, and I think they've got a choice of Di Lorenzo at left back to try and be a little bit more experienced than Emerson in that team. But what do you think of the England side? What do you reckon is going to happen with the formation and the setup?
So for my thoughts on the England side, I think they will stick with a back 4. I kind of want them to go for a back 5, but from how Gareth Southgate set up against Germany is how I would see it as the right way of going forward. But like you just said, everyone thinks they can be the England manager. There's only one person in that job. So Gareth Southgate is the man in that job. So it's going to be how he thinks he can get at this Italian side. And from looking at the Italian side during this knockout tournament, the knockout stages of the tournament, they have been less attacking than we saw in the group stages. They've had a lot more threats coming down that way. The likes of Lukaku, De Bruyne came through in the quarterfinals against for Belgium as well. Olmo Oyarzabal, I forgot how to say his name, but Oyarzabal from Real Sociedad, and Morata, obviously, and Ferran Torres as well. They came really well going that way past them as well. They were stretching that Italian defence out really well. And even Austria, like you said, took them to extra time. Arnautovic scored, but it was ruled out by VAR as well. So there are ways of getting at this Italian side. They're not indestructible as much as we think. Obviously, history plays against us for England as well, losing to Italy in the Euro 2012, 2014 we lost as well. And even before, once upon a time before we were born as well. But it's just one of those things that Gareth Southgate does not let history affect these players. We saw that in the Germany game. It didn't affect us at all. It didn't affect any of the players. You could argue 1 or 2 nerves were in that with the Raheem Sterling back pass, Walker back pass, 1 or 2 from Pickford as well, where he just went a bit wayward. But mistakes are going to happen. Everyone's human in that team. They're not immortals at all. They could be after the end of the game if we win in the 90 minutes as well, or 120 minutes as well. But like I said, I see Gareth Southgate going for a back 4 because of how much more fluid we were going forward against Denmark, how we did well against Ukraine as well. I would play a back five. I think playing a back five and an aggressive back five like we did against Germany worked
Mm,
very well for us because it relieves Kane, Sterling, and Saka of their defensive duties.
yeah,
So having Saka tracking back Emerson for 60, 70 minutes of the game if he does play left back, I'd rather having him going at Emerson for 67 minutes and having Kieran Trippier as that right wing back having to deal with Emerson and Insigne with Carl Walker beside him, with Declan Rice moving over beside him as well. But where I see this game being won or lost for me is that midfield battle. The likes of Calvin Phillips, Declan Rice, Mason Mount against Jorginho, Verratti, and Barella as well. And I said at the beginning of the tournament, Barella is one of the players to watch. And he hasn't been the biggest star in this Italian side, but has been very good attacking wise, offensive wise. And having Jorginho back in the side after a couple games out has really allowed him to be free. And Verratti was out for a couple games, I think. One of them was out for a couple games, I think.
Verratti's been out for a bit, I think.
That was it. Verratti's up for a couple games, and it basically allowed Barella to be a bit more free, a bit more attacking and open-minded as well, which is brilliant. So the reason Mason Mount hasn't been that good attacking wise is because he's been helping out defensive wise as well. And I'm really proud of how Mason Mount has behaved this tournament, because that's why he goes for Mount over Foden and Grealish, because Mount can do it both ways properly. Grealish is very good pressing from the front, but it's not as good tracking back. I've seen it for Aston Villa. He's a very good leader in that sense, but it's not as good as Mason Mount in the defensive duties as well. And the interceptions are tackling. Mason Mount's a bit better than him in that respect for me as well. But I don't really see how England win this midfield battle unless we have Phillips and Rice on top of their game, because Spain won that midfield battle against Italy and they were amazing, Spain, for 120 minutes, but Italy won on penalties, and that's football. You don't always be the best team on the pitch, but you end up winning on penalties and you can sneak a win, and they snuck a win against Spain. But having that midfield battle is what I would see as the biggest test for this England side. How would you kind of see this midfield battle going, Danny, between the likes of Phillips and Rice versus Verratti, Jorginho?
I think Southgate's plan is going to be to have nothing to do with the midfield battle.
Really?
I think he recognises that, look, Rice and Phillips aren't technically as gifted as Jorginho, Verratti, Barella, Locatelli if he comes on. All these players that can play in centre midfield. I think he's going to want to try and be like, look, you take the midfield control. Whenever we win the ball, it's going wide. Whenever we win the ball, it's going wide or it's going over the top. I think we will resort to a little bit more of a route one type of position. Like, right, when we get the ball, how quickly can we get it into the wings? How quickly can we try and push the Italians into their own half and put them under pressure? That's what I think is going to really try and get to Mancini. Is like, look, if Italy come to Wembley, 60,000 roaring England fans, and they get put under pressure, will they snap? That's the question. Will they snap, or will they be strong enough to recover? I think every team that's come to Wembley so far, you saw Denmark, they tried to put England under pressure. And when England had that dodgy little 35 minutes or so, defenders weren't working together, the team wasn't flowing. And then we snapped that free kick, that little bit of excellence from Damsgaard. What a player, by the way, he is. Well, I'm sure we'll talk about him later on in the little clips. But I think we put these Italian players under pressure in the places they don't want it, the wings, the wide areas, in their own half. And I think that's where it's going to be won or lost. I think Rice and Phillips, they're very good defensively, but they're not going to be able to outrun or outpass or outchase the three Italian midfielders. I think if they've got a lot of possession, they keep the ball in the midfield, then I think Italy might come away winners with this one. So I think Southgate recognises that and goes, look, we're going to try and just keep the ball in the wide areas, keep going backwards and forwards, not trying to play these little side passes left and right. And that's how it would play. It's interesting you went with Trippier. I think this is a game for Reece James. He may not have played the best football against Scotland, but I think his physicality, his ability to go up and down, up and down, up and down, just like what Luke Shaw does on that left-hand side, is something that England needs. And it's just, I think Southgate's going with what he knows best with Trippier, with that World Cup.
He's gone for his tried and tested plays, the likes of Trippier, Walker, Kane, Sterling, Pickford, Maguire, and Stones. The 7 I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah.
They were there with him. Most of them were there with him in the Nations League. All of them were there with him in Russia. And throughout all the qualifying, it's how they've literally just repaid him back. And Henderson's coming off the bench every other game as well, which is good to see a quality player like that in our midfield coming on, replacing likes of Rice and Phillips. And it's just something that I believe Gareth Southgate will do. And I can't really fault Trippier in his gameplay so far in this tournament. It's been brilliant and has brought a lot of experience and calmness into that defense from what I've seen. But I wouldn't complain seeing Reece James on the other side because Reece James is someone in a back five. He is brilliant. That's where I've seen his best football in a back five when he's the right wing back under Thomas Tuchel for Chelsea as well. And obviously he's a Champions League winner. He did really well against the likes of Manchester City, against the likes of Real Madrid in the build up to the final as well. And even in the Premier League as well, he showed that he can sometimes play as a right centre back. But I think with Kyle Walker there, who sometimes steps into midfield, along with Harry Maguire, who steps into midfield as well,
Yeah,
having Trippier there pressing from the front and giving Bukayo Saka a bit more freedom allows us to see the best of Saka, and which kind of gives a balance for the team as well. And speaking of Bukayo Saka, I think that's the best way of actually getting past this Italian defense. Having
yeah,
Harry Kane, as we've seen all tournament, dropping deep like he did under Jose Mourinho, and having Sterling and Saka both wings just going forward, going between the left back and the centre back, or the right back and the right centre back, and just going through, threading it through, and Sterling or Saka on the opposite flank will run into the box. I think that's the best way of getting through this Italian side, and Spain got through this Italian side quite a lot. But Bonucci and Chiellini, they are amazing centre backs. Bonucci is probably one of my favourite players to watch this tournament.
yeah,
But it's not the end of the world if Harry Kane loses that battle against Bonucci and Chiellini, because it's going to be two of the best centre backs we've seen in our generation against one of the best strikers we've seen in our generation. But having Sterling and Saka as decoys, you can't ask for more people than that. I wouldn't mind seeing Sancho playing, but I know Saka will be the one to start.
yeah. I think Saka's proven himself now in those games. Like, he had a real point to prove. Like, look, who is this guy coming in? 19 years of age, had a few games for Arsenal this year, did really well. And you've got Jadon Sancho, what, Bundesliga runner-up, 30 goals and assists in however many games, next to Erling Haaland, however much that means. But he's proven himself. He's come into the squad. People were questioning him. Obviously, the Arsenal fans were happy for him, and I wasn't too mad with the choice when I first saw it. But I was like, right, yep, this is your stage now. You've got to try and do it. And I think, yeah, what you said is spot on. That Sterling and Saka, even if they're just distractions, go and just be 100 miles an hour. Go and put in just speed. Go and really test them. Go and see if you can feint. See if they're scared. See if the Italians are up for it. And if it doesn't work, yeah, we've seen we can bring on Grealish. Saka for Grealish, I think, is the most done substitution this tournament. I think that substitution is the one that's always, okay, right, you see Grealish warming up, you see Saka on the pitch, that's just going to be a straight swap.
Sterling goes to the right.
Yeah, Sterling's always going to go to the right. He's never going to come off. He's probably been England's best player throughout the tournament, I think. He's really
100%.
shown the media that, look, I'm not just that boy from Brent. I'm more than that. From a professional footballer. I'm someone that's going to go and win games. I'm going to go and get goals, assists, be a leader as well. You think about the leadership that Sterling might have over that players in similar positions, like the Rashfords, the Sakas, the Jadon Sanchos, those players that are going to be in the same position. He was in their shoes. He was the one that was 17, 18 years of age coming up for England with that weird hairstyle, with that little
Brazil.
bit of the one that was chosen, the one that was taken. And before that, you had Theo Walcott that probably did the same thing for Raheem Sterling. So bringing through that next generation of player is going to be immense for England. And
it's not like he's the oldest player in the tournament. He's like 26, 27 years old. And he's just been there for a long time for England. And he's got that experience to literally help the players calm down. And especially in extra time against Denmark, that's some of his best football that I've seen. Not because he was attacking and he was just so outgoing. It's because he knew when to go, when to stop, when to go to the corner, when to kill some time. Because he knew he had the pace against Vestergaard, Christensen, Kiea. Melo was too far up the pitch as well. But it's just the fact that he actually killed the game off, him and Harry Kane up top. And everyone is saying, oh, why didn't Sterling get subbed off instead of Grealish? We're in the final. Stop complaining, because Sterling and Kane showed great game management under Gareth Southgate for England in that Denmark game as well. But I see that as being one of the key battles in this tournament. So if Di Lorenzo does start at right back, Giovanni Di Lorenzo versus Raheem Sterling at left wing, or left forward if you're playing with a back five and there's three up top, I see that as one of the biggest battles for me personally on the pitch. It could be Chiesa versus Luke Shaw, which is going back that way. But I really see Di Lorenzo having a tough time against Raheem Sterling, and Bonucci and Chiellini and Jorginho dropping back will have to kind of help to compensate against the man on fire for England at the moment.
I think Luke Shaw wins that battle, by the way. I don't see Chiesa. I think Chiesa is a very good player, don't get me wrong. But the challenges he's come up against, like the goal against Spain, good finish. The keeper sort of watched it go in.
That
The
was on the
goal
counter
against
attack as well.
yeah, the
So he
goal
was on the
against
opposite
Austria.
flank than what he was on the right hand side as well.
The goal against Austria, yeah, good finish. I mean, the goal. I think the goalkeeper should have done better. Like for Juventus, I think he's still in the shadow. I think he hasn't come out just yet. And yeah, he's a great player, but I think Luke Shaw, the way he's been playing all season, and now he's taking it into the Euros. Mate, give this guy Chiesa for 90 minutes, 120 minutes. I think he's got him in his pocket. I really am impressed with Luke Shaw recently, and I think if he performs as well as he's been doing, I think Chiesa's in his pocket. I'm not too worried about Chiesa. Insigne on the other side, if he comes up against Kieran Trippier, now that might be a battle. That might be an issue. But I'm just I looked at the analysis of both teams, and I see so many. I'm like Doctor Strange. I see so many outcomes where England come out on top, and I see very little that Italy come out on top. I think Italy are going to have to play to their best. The game we saw against Turkey, I think they're going to have to play versus Turkey versus England to be able to even get a speck of glory in this game. I'm so confident.
Yeah, it's like with me, I'm not even worried about the game so far. I'm worried about how the England players are going to be during this game, because seeing Luke Shaw kind of just silence Martin Braithwaite against Denmark, seeing him silence Joshua Kimmich, who's one of Germany's main creators from that right wing side. People forget how well Luke Shaw has done in this tournament compared to other fullbacks in this tournament. Everyone goes on about Spinazzola. Everyone's gone on about Jordi Alba, who did all right. Mailer for Denmark has been brilliant, but Luke Shaw, outside of England, no one's really given him the credit that is due. And Kyle Walker on the other side as well. People need to give him his rose as well. Right centre back, right wing back has been playing this tournament and has done it against some of the best players in Europe as well. And I can't really see a fault in this England side where we don't end up. I don't want to sound too cocky, but everything's there for us to. Everything's there for us to win. We've got one of the best strikers in the world. We've got one of the best informed players in the tournament. We've got a manager who has managed every game exceedingly well. Obviously, that Scotland game, everyone went downbeat. Oh, yeah, Southgate's not the one. Oh, John Stones missed the header, this, that, and the other. But when England stopped playing the occasion against Denmark like they did, when they conceded the one goal and they started playing the game, we turned up. We played the occasion against Scotland for 90 minutes. And Gareth Southgate has kind of got that into the team now, where we can actually play the game. And I really think England will actually play this game. And I reckon England will win within 120 minutes. I reckon it's going to be 3-2 to England. And I reckon it's going to be a fun game. I reckon it's going to be a bit more open than Italy wants it to be, because England can stretch, especially with our subs as well. I reckon we can stretch. Italy have great subs, don't get me wrong. Locatelli, Cristante, Bernardeschi, Berardi, Belotti or Immobile, whoever does start at striker. But England's bench is just as strong as well. There's a rumour of Phil Foden being out with a knock. So if he does make it in the squad, if he doesn't make it in the squad, I just don't want Gareth Southgate to pick the two keepers. Just have another outfield player there just in case. It makes it a lot easier to have an extra keeper out of the squad. How do you predict this game going, Danny?
First and foremost, can you imagine penalties? Can you imagine that?
No, I'm just drinking my sorrows away if it's penalties.
Honestly, I think if it goes to penalties, I think every single person in this country, whether you like football or not, can understand and empathize with penalties being the worst thing in the world. Look, I'm a goalkeeper. Like, whether the goalkeeper makes a save or not, it's not their issue. It's their time to become a hero. But stepping up in the biggest moment, I think in everyone's career that steps on that pitch, everyone, I don't think they've probably had a bigger moment. Obviously, the Italians, when they won the World Cup, I think how many of them are, I don't think there's any Italians left from that World Cup winning squad.
No. That was ages ago. Like, Chiellini started his career for Italy. His first ever Italian game as well was the first game at Wembley, England versus Italy under 21s. England wearing that kit, and I was there, so I was really happy to see that Giorgio Chiellini. I've seen him before, and I was like, hey, he's actually had a decent career. Pizzini was the player that scored a hat trick in that game for Italy, but
absolute baller. But no Italians have ever been to a big event like this.
No, it's just the Euros. They lost in 2012. To Spain. So Chiellini, Bonucci, I think that's more like, I think one or two squad players may have been in that squad as well, but Chiellini, Bonucci were in that squad where they lost to Spain 4-0 in Kiev back in 2012.
And obviously this England side, and no one's ever been this far.
We're in the promised land now, Danny. We're in the
Oh,
promised
mate,
land now.
just penalties. I think I might have to turn the TV off and I'll watch Good Born in Britain next morning. I wouldn't be able to do it. I would have to, honestly. I think it's got to be done in 90 minutes. I think for England to have a chance, I think it's got to be done in 90 minutes. I think 120 minutes. You saw what Pickford was like the other day after 90 minutes when he started to get sloppy, mistakes started to be made. He doesn't want penalties. I think Harry Kane's penalty in extra time was a little bit suspect as well. Yes, the rebound kindly fell for him, whether the laser pen helped or not. But I just think it's got to be done in 90 minutes. I'm going to go 1-0 England, and I'm going to go with a Harry Maguire goal. 1-0 England, Harry Maguire goal.
Let's go, Harry Maguire.
Slab it.
But yeah, our last little calling call for England before we move on to our next topic is literally the fact that as a sports fan in England, we've seen the England cricket team a couple of years ago win against New Zealand the World Cup in the most dramatic of fashions in a super over, and coming back from almost losing the game to becoming the world champions at the time was incredible. I've seen England again in extra time beat Australia in the Rugby World Cup in 2003 with Johnny Wilkinson's drop goal as well. It was something that I was like, as a kid, that was like the biggest thing the year after we lost to Brazil in the World Cup as well. So it's amazing to see that. We've seen our Olympians do it time and time again in Athens, in Beijing, in London, like so Mo Farah, so Chris Hoy, Jessica Ennis, the rowing team, the 4x100 teams in Athens as well, Darren Campbell, Christina Horogu. These athletes, these Olympians are going to be there for all time for us to remember. We've seen Anthony Joshua, we've seen Amir Khan, we've seen Tyson Fury come back from the depths of hell, basically, Tyson Fury, and coming back to really becoming one of the best boxers we've ever seen in our lifetime. Heavyweight boxing is at its best in England because of Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua, and it's amazing to see that. We've seen how, excuse me, I'm getting a bit dry mouth, but I'll have some more in a bit. But we've seen, who else we've seen? We've seen Andy Murray, who's been the first Brit to win Wimbledon in 2013 since like 1938 or something, since Fred Perry as well, which is ridiculous. And we've gone full circle with the fact that all of our sports in this country, we've done so well besides football. And football is now it's time. We've seen our teams win the Champions League. We've seen our players become some of the best in the world. But our national team, we are at that stage where we believe we can become the best in Europe. And it's going to be amazing to see this England side really go against this Italian side. Gareth Southgate will give them all the freedom in the world to play. There will be no fear on them. For Gareth Southgate, if they lose, he'll take the blame 100%. If they win, he'll give the players all the praise they need, because that's the sign of a great manager for me. The fact that he's been doing that this tournament and he's given the players the freedom to be who they want to be in this tournament. And I believe it's going to be a great thing to see how the nation reacts to this. If we win, we're going to be buzzing for the next like 2-3 years, like you said before, pre-recording to the podcast. If we lose, we're still going to remember this day as the time when England got to the final and our nation was done proud by this team. Win, lose or draw, I'm proud of this England side. Obviously, I want England to win, and I think we are going to win this game. But it's something that I believe England are actually going to do this nation proud, and we're going to do amazing. Don't worry, my kit's it needs ironing, so I wasn't going to turn up on this thing with a creased England shirt. I'll wear it for the game as you do. But Danny, any last rallying calls for England before we move on to our next topic?
Just look, Southgate, you're the one. That's it.
That's it.
Football's coming home again. That's all needs to be said. Football's coming home again.
What? I can't wait. We've got what? 7 hours to go?
6.5.
6 hours.
6 hours, 33 minutes and 20 seconds.
And 20 seconds. We're nearly there.
Not like we're counting.
We're definitely not counting, but we can't wait for it. And this preview just gassed me up even more. I was saying to Danny before the episode, before we recorded, I've just been keeping busy with other things besides football. The Wimbledon final is going to be on in a bit as well, but I'll still be like, nah, I'm just going to be thinking about football, which is good. But no, let's go on to our little review of the tournament, Danny. So we've got a few things that we wanted to discuss, and there's probably one or two things you wanted to discuss as well about the tournament. So how have you found Euro 2020 in 2021 in general? How have you found the tournament? Has it been exciting for you? Have you found some amazing players that you hadn't noticed before, or some players you thought that were going to do well, but they didn't really do well for their national teams? How did you kind of find it in general?
Look, first and foremost, for a tournament that is the first of its kind, travelling around the different areas and playing a match in Denmark, then playing a match in Rome, then playing a match in Wembley, during probably the worst time to travel of all time, of all footballing history records. I think it's gone quite well. There's obviously been very minimal COVID outbreaks within squads. Obviously, the Spanish had a bit of a scare at the beginning beforehand, and obviously the Scottish players, one or two in their team. Obviously, they got knocked out early doors, though, so no one cares about them anyway.
We don't care about Scotland on this podcast.
Nah, it's fine. But I think it's gone quite well. I think it shows that ideas are in place to be performed, and I think in future tournaments, if they were to offer it again, I think it's something that can be done. I don't think it works on a World Cup stage. I don't think you can go for one game in Russia and then one game in Brazil. I heard Arsene Wenger talking about how this could be the new format for tournaments, how you have host cities and you make it a world event. I think Europe is small enough to be able to do that. And also the climates are quite similar. You go in the summer in July in England, it's going to be very similar to the one in Rome, maybe a little bit more humid. Like there's going to be very minimal change. If I go from one week playing in the Amazon to then next week going and playing in Iceland, it's not going to work. But I like the format of the tournament. I think the group stages were very entertaining. I think there was a lot of goals that we saw that last day in Group E, was it? With Spain winning 5-0 and then the thriller of Sweden as well.
Yeah, Poland, Sweden as well. That was a crazy game.
So I think the knockout stages have been less enjoyable, and I will put that down on it. There's obviously been the big scare of France going out early doors and Belgium obviously going out early doors. It's people that were tipping Belgium to win the whole thing. Obviously the Italians have taken their place and rightly gone through to the final. But I think overall, if we're looking at out of 10, 7.5 or 8, I think it's not been the best tournament. I think it's been topped off by England getting so far. That it's been a better tournament for an English fan. I think if you're an average viewer, if you're an American, if you're an Australian, if you're a South American, I think this tournament has been quite the one which has been, it won't be one to remember, if that makes sense. It won't be one that is going to be in the history books of, I remember that tournament, like the 2012 World Cup, for example, the South Africa World Cup. That's going to be one that was
2010, Danny.
Oh, 2010.
Yeah.
Like the 2010 World Cup. The South Africa one, that tournament will always be remembered for its dramas, for its games. I still remember that Shabalala goal and the commentators going mental and the fans going mental.
The Jabulani ball and all of that, the crazy tech that you needed to score with that, with Diego Forlan getting golden boot, the ghost goal with Frank Lampard as well. All of that just rings bells. As soon as you said 2010 World Cup, I was like, it will just comes back to me just like that.
Is that the Ghana incident, the Ghana Uruguay incident too?
With Luis
Suarez, like just all these the mistake by the Paul Robinson. Was it Paul Robinson or Rob Green in that tournament? The main mistake.
Rob Green against the USA.
Rob Green mistake, like all of these things in one tournament. That's a tournament that's going to live on forever. This one, I don't think so. What are your thoughts?
So yeah, with my thoughts on this tournament, it's been great to see how some of these teams have just literally come out of the blue. Like with Spain and Italy, they weren't really hyped up before the tournament in the UK media from what we follow as well. Like the tournament favourites fall in that Group F or England or Belgium, and people going on about how the Netherlands, Italy and Spain weren't that good. And two of them became semi-finalists and one of them's a finalist as well. So first and foremost, it's the fact that I'm quite glad that ever since I've started this podcast, I've been doing research from outside of just like UK media and been doing my own little research and learning things from like our like scouting networks and different people from around Europe as well. It's been brilliant. For me, being a fan as well, is the fact that I got to go to the Italy versus Spain game was a once in a lifetime opportunity for me. So I loved it. I love the fact that I could go to a game in my home country for a semi-final, and I realized that this won't happen like you said. It's not going to be like a game in Seoul and a game in Reykjavik for a World Cup. If it works in Europe, it works in Europe. And I know the next tournament they have is in Germany, and it's just in Germany. So it's just about flying out to Germany if you can afford to go and you can afford to get tickets and all of that. And the World Cup's going to be in Qatar. So it's going to be another one of those things that if you can go to Qatar and you can enjoy it, then you're going to enjoy it. But the fact that I think it's the anniversary of something or other, that's why they had it all around Europe. And having games in Baku where you get tickets for like €10, but you have games in England where it's like £500 for a game, something like that. It's because of the demand of some places are more than others as well, and that's what it was. It was nice to kind of have it around the continent. But in terms of the entertainment, it's been great entertaining football. It's been great to see some underdogs really come through, and really nice to kind of look back and for the first time, obviously, we've had a podcast, and the first time we've had these conversations recorded. Because when we look back at our first episode of the Scout Show, we were looking at players that we thought were going to be doing really well. Like I said, Donyell Marlon, he missed a key chance for that Netherlands team against the Czech Republic, and 60 seconds later, they were down to 10 men against the Czech Republic, and Czech Republic spoiled the Netherlands party. So I'm just there like, oh, you know what? That's crazy. And I thought Portugal would be one of the favourites to go through and win the tournament. But when you look at their attack, besides Ronaldo, no one turned up. Bruno Fernandes, Bernardo Silva, Diogo Jota didn't turn up. He was a bit more selfish than I thought he would be. João Felix had like half a game, and he was quite poor as well. So it was little things like that where you get to actually look back on what you said, and you're just there like, oh yeah, I was right and I was wrong. But it's nice because you get to learn a bit more about these teams, and learning more about these teams, about how Italy have literally come back from the ashes of not qualifying for the 2018 World Cup, and how they've kept some of the experienced players but brought a brand new ethos into their team, which has been brilliant. We've seen Gareth Southgate build on Russia 2018 and the Nations League as well. We've seen Switzerland do amazing. That meme of that fan literally is probably one of the images of that tournament that's transcended football as well. It's not just in football. You'll see that on memes of everything, of like Marvel content, of like politics content, whatever you see on social media, you will see that guy just everywhere, which is brilliant. You've seen things where you want to see fans cheering and celebrating, and fortunately for some people, they got to go to the England games. Obviously, they were on reduced capacity, but they got to experience their nation winning against Germany. We'd never seen Germany win. We've always seen Germany win against England in our lifetime at major tournaments, besides this one. And Gareth Southgate has changed that for us. We've seen the likes of Luis Enrique, who has gone from one of the best Barcelona managers and one of the best players they've ever had, to the Spanish manager, who's left out the big names like Sergio Ramos and Isco and Asensio as well, to really having a really good team for that Spanish side. And he was saying after the game, the players shouldn't be unhappy. They should be happy with how they've made it this far, and they've exceeded my expectations so far. And it's a lot to build on for the Qatar World Cup in a couple of years to go. And seeing the likes of Pedri for the first time in the Spanish side, I thought he was amazing. He's a brilliant player to watch. Someone that everyone needs to really appreciate. If you understand football, you appreciate someone like Pedri in that team as well. When you're looking at players for France like Kylian Mbappe, he was a major disappointment for me. He's someone that everyone was hyping up. The British public, the French public, everywhere was like, oh, he's going to have a sick tournament. He's going to do really well. Benzema coming back in the French team was amazing. But Paul Pogba having a really good tournament as well. Again, everyone makes mistakes, but seeing some players like Kylian Mbappe or seeing someone like Bruno Fernandes not really having a good tournament, it shows that this tournament isn't always for the favourites. It's not always for the best players. It's not always for the best teams. But it's always about how you get through a tournament. And we've seen Italy and England. And for the first time in a while, I think it's been good to see two teams who have been consistently good throughout the whole tournament get to the final. No one's really scraped their way through. No one's really caused any upsets to get there. But I think it's been very good to see. I was really disappointed with Belgium, to be fair. I have to shout that out, because you wanted to see a bit more from them. It's kind of the end of their golden generation. I don't think Qatar, they're going to have as good a defense as I think they will have at the moment. But that's just how I see it personally. I wanted Belgium to do a bit more than we did. And with some of the younger players that we talked about before going forwards, hopefully we get to see more of them going forward. But that's kind of my little review of Euro 2020 and how I've seen that. Just name me a couple of these young players that you've seen throughout the whole tournament that you've enjoyed watching, Danny. That you may not have mentioned before, I may not have mentioned before, because I've got quite a few, to be fair, as well.
Yeah. We've got to start with Damsgaard, surely.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I feel bad for him for having that hairline at 19.
Poor guy.
Poor man. What a poor man. He's going to struggle when he gets older. No, I'm joking. But the swaz and the technique on that free kick, I didn't believe it went in. When he took it, I was in no belief that it was going in. I was on my phone. I was looking up. I looked up at the TV, and the commentators and the Denmark fans were going crazy. And I saw the net bulge, and I went, "What? No, has it gone in?" Huh? And then obviously it sort of hit me like, "Oh, now England are 1-0 down." And he was the one that everyone was ranting and raving about beforehand as well, saying this guy's been amazing this tournament. He's the next player that's going to come up through this Denmark team. He's going to be a big money move this summer. And you sort of, before the match, you go, yeah, okay, cool, yeah, all right, cool, yeah. He's got nothing to worry about. And then he comes up with that piece of magic, and and he goes, right, we might now need to start having a look at this guy. And I can't remember what club he plays for, but I know the club came out with a statement and went, anyone who wants him is going to have to pay a minimum of 40, 50 million this year.
Yeah, Sampdoria.
Yeah.
Claudio Ranieri's team, or his old team. I don't know if he's left them or not, but Claudio Ranieri was the manager of Sampdoria last season.
Bought him for 7 to 9 million euros, 19 years of age, I believe. Mm-hmm. Fantastic player. He's gonna go on and do well in regards to that. Other players that have surprised me, I really like Locatelli as a player. I know we shouldn't be hyping up these Italians beforehand, but if he makes his move to Arsenal, he makes his move to Juventus, then I think that's probably a good move for him. I think he's going to do really well there. I think Arsenal need a player like him, especially if they're going to start losing Granit Xhakas and El Nenis and this, that, the other. They're going to have no centre mids by the end. And Emil Smith-Rowe to Aston Villa is still a possibility.
He's got a hint of Fabregas about him, I think, Locatelli. He's got a hint of Fabregas about him.
I can see that.
It's just about if he gets... It's just, with Arsenal nowadays, I know they have decent signings, and it's just... With Arsenal, is it the place to go with no European competition? Are there better places in Europe to go? For me, I would say so, but Locatelli going from AC Milan to Sassuolo to Arsenal, is that the best move for him? I'm not too sure if it is, personally.
Well, I think if Juventus are in for him, I think that's probably the preferred place for him to go. It's not a country move. It's, all right, we're just going to move up the road to Turin. Mm-hmm. We'll still get the same amount of game time. I think Juventus are probably a similar team that are lacking a centre mid. I know they've just bought Weston McKennie. Yep. I know he had the year out on loan from Schalke, and he's come back and he's done amazing. And that's his time to go in. Aaron Ramsey is still on their books, but I think they've been missing someone ever since like the Khediras, ever since anyone like that has been in their centre mid. They've been there missing someone. The Matuidis.
They got rid of all of their experience in one go. Matuidi, Khedira, Pjanic got swapped for Artur as well, so it's just something.
Emre Can
as well going to Dortmund. So it just they went back on themselves really. Andrea Pirlo, and I've said before, I'm not really a big fan of Pirlo as a manager because, like we said before, he's left Chiesa out in the dark a lot just to accommodate Ronaldo, and it didn't work. And even in the knockout stages against Porto in the Champions League, Chiesa was the one that got the goal, and he was the one that was kind of driving that team forward. And as much as I love Ronaldo, Chiesa was that guy for Juventus, and I believe Juventus should really be building that team around Chiesa to keep him there, because a lot of European clubs will want to be after Federico Chiesa after the tournament he's had as well.
Yeah. The only other, there's two more names I want to speak of, and I've just had to Google how to pronounce it. So the Swedish, speaking of why Chiesa's been left in the dark, the Swedish man of Dejan Kulusevski, I think he could have had a lot more games in the tournament, but I think he's going to go for big money this summer if Juventus aren't willing to keep him on board. And then the other one is Dumfries of Holland.
Oh yeah, he was brilliant.
What a player he is! I've always seen him on FIFA, and I've always used him. He's got great speed, he's got great pace, but I've never actually heard of him doing anything for PSV. Mm-hmm. And you look at these performances there, and you're like, well, why is this guy not going for 40, 50 million to a Man City, to a Leicester even? I think if Leicester popped their head up and tried to put some money in for him, I think he'd be a great fit for that Leicester side.
I know. I was going to say with Nuno at the club, I know he's got Matt Doherty there who's there. But if Aurier ends up leaving, you go get like 15, 20 million for Aurier. Go for a Dumfries, get a bit more money on him, and it will be there for the next 5 years or so, I'd say. The Dumfries, isn't it amazing?
He'd have a good connection with Bergwijn as well. That's just obviously joined last year.
Are we going to do that PSV link up again? That would be sick. Bergwijn who left and Dumfries who was there as well. People are like, oh yeah, it's not Ultimate Team, but literally PSV, the Netherlands on that right hand side, it will be a good link up. It will be great to see how they kind of do going forward as well, and that's just how we see it. We see Dumfries going forward as well. For me personally, my top three in no order: Pedri, who I was blessed to watch. Like I said before, I for people who don't understand what players do without goals and assists in that midfield, who just dictate the play, who can slow the game down, speed the game up, and really show the kind of qualities that they have. Pedri for me was amazing because he's played like 60 odd games in his first full season. He's going to go to the Olympics in August as well. In Tokyo as well. So he's going to have a full season of football. Then he's going to go back to Barcelona in the autumn as well. So it's going to be amazing to see how Pedri does in his career. And a lot of people walking out the stadium were saying he's going to be a Ballon d'Or winner, he's going to do really well because he actually dictated that midfield against Jorginho and Verratti, who have been there and done that previously. as well, which is great. So Pedri was one for me. Dumfries, you and I share that because
Yeah.
Dumfries was quality to watch, and I believe that he was
23.
someone, yeah,
23 of
23,
those.
and for someone like Aaron Wan-Bissaka or someone like Reece James or someone like Kyle Walker, who we've seen in England have done really well with their pace and their power, not so much of Wan-Bissaka, but with their defensive ability. What does Dumfries have that the other three don't have? If you know what I mean, like
Nothing.
just as good. He just may not be English. It doesn't get the hype in our country. But
Yeah.
for me to see how Dumfries played was very good as well. I liked that first game against Ukraine. We just kept bombing forward, trying to get in there for goals and stuff, and it was brilliant to see. This last one, I do like Damsgaard. Damsgaard was great to watch, but we kind of talked about him. This last one, I did like him for a bit, but it's just the fact we didn't see him enough, and that was Jeremy Doku for Belgium.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So Jeremy Doku was the left winger on Belgium versus Italy. So he gave Di Lorenzo a torrid time. He gave Bonucci a torrid time in that game. He really tried to push that team forward for Belgium. They didn't win in the 90 minutes and they got knocked out, which is great. But Jeremy Doku is someone, again, like you, who I've seen on FIFA, I've seen on Football Manager. I thought, you know what? He could be a good player, but I hadn't seen him play, so I'm not going to pretend like I have. But when I saw him play against Belgium, he was fantastic. He was a great dribbler of the ball. He did very well to really go at this team, this Italian side, and he kind of exposed a couple of weaknesses for them and asked them a couple of questions in that defense as well, which is great to see. And I really believe that Jeremy Doku is someone that I would like to see in the Premier League. I'd like to see him in a big Champions League tie here and there in a group stage, so because I think we need more players like that in this generation of football. I don't know who said it recently, but someone said that. I think it's Thiago who said it, but we don't really see many showmen of football anymore. We don't see many superstars because they're all playing into a system. They're all playing towards what a manager wants. But if you have someone who can shine like that or can bring something out of you, just like a bit of special talent, a bit of special skills or whatever it is, it would be nice to see someone like Jeremy Doku on a bigger stage as well, which is great. Honourable mentions: Pau Torres, the centre-back, Eric Garcia, the centre-back for Spain. They had really good games, and Pau Torres had a great season for Villarreal. I see why he's been linked with some of the big clubs in European football. Eric Garcia is off to Barcelona, so he barely played for Man City, and he looked like he didn't miss a beat for Spain in this tournament, and he did very well for me, I would say. Last one I'd say is Patrick Schick for the Czech Republic.
Oh, good player. Good shout.
Good shout. Probably the goal of the tournament for me was amazing. The fact that I got to see Patrick Schick, who looks like Willany, the YouTuber, a very funny guy. I saw him in that Beta Squad video, so I was like, oh yeah, he looks like Patrick Schick, which is very funny. But no, Czech Republic were a surprise team for me. They did very well. I thought they were really good in this tournament. But Patrick Schick led the way. They nearly won against Denmark. They nearly made it to extra time, but they didn't. But it's just one of those things where I thought Patrick Schick was a very good player to watch and quite enjoyable to watch as well. That's kind of like my review of the young players in this tournament. Danny, how would you rate some of these bigger names that we said? We've talked about the young players, but were there any bigger names who have really stood out for you in this tournament, or were there bigger names that kind of let you down in this tournament? Like I mentioned, Mbappe, Bruno Fernandes, my own player that I love, but he let me down in this tournament. How did you find that? I think
this tournament's been about who hasn't performed rather than who has performed.
Mm-hmm.
I think you said that Mbappe is an absolute shock from being the golden boy of the World Cup in 2018 to now. It's like a complete different player. And then obviously you hear all these things come out in the news like, oh, he's been complaining about Griezmann, he's been complaining about Benzema, or I think I'm the best free kick taker. Or
never seen him take a free kick in my life.
Exactly. If he was something like, oh yeah, he scored 17 free kicks for PSG this year, it's like, well no, like where's the evidence? Where's the credibility of you scoring free kicks? Benzema has come in and he's performed, and that's end of.
Yeah.
And I think he's got a little bit too big for his boots, I think, Mbappe, and I think that won't stop continuing. I think he's going to get as big as possible, and I think he's going to try and get to this Ronaldo mentality as he grows older and older and older. And I think that might be a detriment to his fan base and his personality. You see Neymar a little bit has started to come back to more to the norm, to the right, I'm a normal guy rather than I'm going to be a flashy Neymar. I'm going to be this, that, the other. I think he's starting to like his fans a little bit more. He's on Twitch every now and then streaming CSGO and all these games and trying to recoup with them. Whereas I think Mbappe has got it inside his head. It's Mbappe's world and everyone lives in it. I think that's the motive. I think if he goes to Real Madrid, I think that'll be, or Benzema's off if he goes to Real Madrid, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I'll be end of Benzema's time because
Yeah,
I've got the Champions League, I've got the league titles. I'm all good to go.
I'm
Because
not dealing
even
with this brat. Yeah,
yeah, it's one of those things. It's like Felipe told us earlier that João Felix was acting like a pop star. Kylian Mbappe has been acting like a pop star
yeah,
because what he's one of the another player spoke out recently saying that Kylian Mbappe needs to leave the French league because he's acting like he's the biggest name in the league. But if he goes to a bigger league, Bundesliga, La Liga, the Premier League, he'll be in and amongst it every week in the tournament as well, which is going to be great to see how he develops as well and how he really does. And he doesn't really want to cheat his way to stardom, really. And
mm,
I can't wait to see how Kylian Mbappe bounces back from this if he still goes on with that same mentality, or if he does really show some humble pie and really goes on about, you know what, I need to build myself again. I really need to get back onto this. And everyone said before the tournament, the only team that are stopping France this tournament was France,
France.
and they did. They did it within themselves. But yeah, that was Kylian Mbappe. Did anyone else kind of disappoint you in any of the bigger teams?
You can talk about.
Morata, maybe.
Oh, I feel really sorry for Morata. I tweeted out the other night. I think football is football. Football is a game of love. Football is the beautiful game.
Mm,
No one should be treated the way that Morata does. You might have your opinion on Morata. You might be disappointed with Morata's performances, but there's no reason in any shape or form to start threatening his family, to start threatening his well-being. And I think the fact that he even stepped up for a penalty, I think was the wrong decision. I think if you're in this mindset of, like, I don't know if you've heard the story. So the other day when Spain left a stadium, his family were there in Seville,
mm.
and they've all got Morata shirts on the back, and people were throwing things at his wife, his kids,
Oh God,
for having
seriously.
for having a Morata shirt, and they were throwing cans and they were throwing this, that, the other, and they had to be escorted by the Spanish police out of the stadium. And for him to, he probably thought that was his moment. That was it. How he was going to recoup the performances, and he was going to relive the Spanish dream, and this, that, the other. And I feel really sorry for him. And I don't honestly for that. I think Morata is a great player. Look, he's a professional footballer. You may be disrespecting Morata, but you're sitting alone on your couch on a Tuesday night, and you've got work tomorrow at 4 a.m. Like, get a life. This, that, the other. The only other one that I can say may not have performed up to his standard is Ronaldo. That's the
Mm.
only other one I can say, or Penaldo, as you might call him. Just, he's got to have a bigger influence. Like, you've seen Messi the past few weeks in the Copa America, and people saying they're going to put their life on the line for Messi. They're going to do this for Messi. They're going to get him the championship. Like Rodrigo de Paul has said, come out openly and said, like, we're winning this for Messi, to show how great he is and how much of a leader and a captain he is for that on that team, even though he might not have the armband. But
Mm.
and then there's Ronaldo, where you saw him, like, as soon as his team lost, he was throwing arms in the air, he was complaining, he was crying. I think he needs to. I always say it, Messi is the GOAT. Ronaldo hasn't shown up again in another tournament. That's what, one tournament out of the last six that he has shown up in, with obviously the Euro win. But I think Ronaldo and Mbappe for me are the two people that haven't performed, of the big names.
We haven't mentioned anyone from Germany as well, so I'll get to that in a bit, which is going to be good. But even with the whole situation with Germany, they were on a team within transition as well. But
Mm,
I was saying with Salim earlier in the tournament, every team you see in a tournament is always in a transition. There's no team besides one or two rare teams that are the perfect team, the right age, the right experience, the right mixture of youth and experience. And with this Germany side as well, I wanted to see more from them. I thought we would have had a tougher game than we did. We probably could have, if Muller scored, it could have gone to extra time or something like that. But that's all ifs, buts, and maybes. They struggled against Hungary. Hungary were a brilliant team. They played their heart out in their three games that they had as well. Um, but with Germany going forward, it's going to be tough to see how. I think it's Hansi Flick who's going to be the new manager for Germany,
yes,
the former Bayern coach. So it's going to be fun to see how they deal with being under the new manager. Joachim Löw's been there for like 15, 16 years as well. So they've had that under their belt as well. But for me personally, with the Morata thing as well, I don't know if I put it on my story on a Friday Night Counter Attack story when I went to the game. I was literally there supporting Spain because I thought it'd be a great game to see England versus Spain at Wembley. I've already said before they're a tougher opponent, but with Alvaro Morata, I celebrated like I was celebrating an England goal or a Man United goal. I was like, yeah, I'm so happy for him. The Spanish fans around us were celebrating, they were dancing around us, they were happy. they were like, you know what, he's come onto the pitch, he's played against Chiellini and Bonucci, he's gone through them a couple of times, made some wrong decisions, but that decision was the right decision. Shifted onto his left foot and scored past Donnarumma. And the penalty, like we said, man, Olmo missed a penalty before, and the media didn't say anything about it. But when Morata missed the penalty, they used him as a scapegoat. They used him as a poor scapegoat because he missed that penalty and Jorginho ended up scoring the winning penalty and everything, which is crazy. But Alvaro Morata, I thought that was the game where he could catch a break from the world press, the world media looking down on him and thinking,
Well,
you
that was
know
it.
what, I've got the equaliser. Let's have a bit of help from my teammates here. It didn't happen. It went to penalties, and he was the one that ended up missing that key penalty for them. And it was crazy because I wanted to see a bit more from Spain in that second half of extra time. The second half of extra time was basically just like they were all just tired, they were all exhausted. But it's just how it was in the end. Morata could have had his rows. For me, I still thought he had a really decent tournament. I like to take the mick out of him every now and then, but when you score a couple goals like that, he's now the all-time scorer in competitions at national
Yeah,
international tournaments as well, overtaking Fernando Torres. So he gets the respect he deserves. It's just the fact that if he's going to be there at the next tournament as a starting striker, if any new players are going to start forward, but the system that Enrique played with Olmo as a false nine really worked for Spain. It really worked for them in the game against Italy. So it's just dependent on how we go.
yeah,
And the last person I would say who really let me down in this tournament um, is basically I don't really want to oust him out. It's a Netherlands player, so it's Matthijs de Ligt. Matthijs de Ligt let me down in this
yeah.
tournament because he was the guy that cost the Netherlands this tournament. And Frank de Boer really should have changed that team around earlier when he got sent off because I know everyone's going to be like, Hamza, he just got a red card, but Netherlands had a really easy path to that semi-final, to the final. We could have been playing the Netherlands in the semi-final because I reckon they could have beaten Denmark in that in that
100%,
fight in that
100%.
final as well. But the fact that Matthijs de Ligt was literally one or two key decisions away from literally just rather letting the player go, letting the just making a normal tackle because he made one mistake. Remember, Danny, and then he tried to fix it with another mistake. So both mistakes just happened, and it caused him a red card as well. VAR was right in that decision, in my opinion. But Matthijs de Ligt, for someone who missed Virgil van Dijk besides him in that tournament, is fair to say, Netherlands did really well besides that point. Like they
Yeah,
were a fun team to watch, they were entertaining, and they were a joy to watch from Memphis to Fire with Workhorse up front. And I know we mentioned Marlon missing the whole chance earlier, but you're one of the leaders in that team, Matthijs de Ligt, and you really should have done better. But to be fair to him, he did hold his hands up straight away and said, "Yeah, it was my fault. I did let the country down." But Frank de Boer really should have changed that team immediately to nullify the Czech Republic, and he didn't. And that's why the Czech Republic got to the quarterfinals and the Netherlands didn't. And it'll be a learning curve for Matthijs de Ligt to see how he recovers from this going forward and if he actually brings that to another international tournament. But that's kind of how I see it personally. Matthijs de Ligt was a letdown for me personally.
I'm a huge fan of De Ligt. Huge fan of De Ligt. I think ever since he came out of Ajax, and obviously that Ajax academy is one of the best in the world.
Mm-hmm.
He was bound to be a superstar. Whether Juventus was the best move for him in the world, playing again, literally trying to battle against Chiellini and Bonucci for that starting spot, might not have been the best move for him. But he was the one that was going to have to step up for Holland in place of Virgil van Dijk and bring the team forward. And yeah, when you make a mistake like that, well, I wouldn't even classify it as a mistake. I think that's just a lapse of confidence, a lapse of concentration, and just maybe even in the moment, he's still so young, and for a big tournament like this where they had the promise of getting to the final, I reckon even into the final.
Yeah.
I reckon that team would have really worried England for sure. More than
The way
Denmark
they set up, the way Depay gets plus people 1-on-1, Frankie De Jong in that midfield that we've been talking about on our WhatsApp group as well. Quality midfielder. Wijnaldum having the time of his life as an attacking midfielder as well.
Yeah.
There's a lot going for that Netherlands side, but it just didn't happen for them, unfortunately.
Yeah, but they'll come back though. I think that World Cup. I think this is the Netherlands used to be the laughing stock, didn't they? That Holland team used to be the laughing stock.
Because again, they didn't qualify for the 2018 World Cup, and they've rebuilt slowly but surely. And it was something that I thought they literally could have gone to a semi-final or a final, and it would have been fun to see them really do well in this tournament. But it wasn't to be. But yeah, we're nearly at the end of this, Danny. Just to wrap it up, we've talked about England versus Italy. We've talked about all of these different teams. But before the final, was there one capturing moment from this tournament that has really got you, like in the fields, in the heart, like has really got to you?
I think it's just the fans. I think every time all the England fans are in the same boat. It's we don't care about this tournament. We're going to lose. We're going to get knocked out in the group stages. Are we going to come up against? We've got the group of death runner up. We need to come second so that we avoid them. And every year the players capture the hearts of the nation and they bring you forward. I think Connor Cody came out and people were like, "Oh, are you not disappointed you haven't played like a single game?" And he's like, "It's been the best for 6 weeks of my life." He said, "The best 6 weeks of my life. You've got all these players that are doing it for everyone, the whole nation, the Queen, the Prime Minister, fans from age 6 to 66." I was walking down the street earlier, and then this old woman said to one of the builders, and they were talking. She was like, "Are we going to win tonight? Do I turn on my TV?" I know my nan and granddad are going to be watching on BBC One tonight. They hate football, whether or not that's because it's replacing Line of Duty or whatnot on their TV screens. They tune in anyway, and they think it's going to be, I don't know, the next episode of EastEnders or something when they see the England match. But everyone is going to be glued to their screens come 8 o'clock, and we just got to hope that they bring it home for the boys.
Yeah, it's literally it. And for me to go through this tournament, and we had the luxury of not being in lockdown like some other countries in Europe and around the world, where we got to go out and see our friends, got to see our family, for me to get to go to the games, for me to talk to different people via Zoom and have different conversations about football from different people around Europe as well, which is brilliant for me to learn about their football teams, to learn about how they value their football teams, and for me to come to the end of this and realize that it's England in the final because other people in the world are really looking against England. They really want Italy to win because Italy are the fans' favourite. For me to really think that, oh yeah, this isn't normal for us. We're not used to being in the final. We're used to being the laughing stock of the Euros or the World Cup, getting knocked out to Iceland. And for me to see Gareth Southgate go through all the crap that he's been through, for me to see Harry Kane go through all the crap he's been through, Raheem Sterling especially, for me, like you've got me on social media and you see how many people just disrespect him, and I'm just there like, nah, he's amazing. He's the boy from Brent. He's someone that has basically made Wembley his home ground personally. To see Harry Maguire go through the year he's had of being arrested from the Greek police and having mistake after mistake at Manchester United and being literally just treated like crap. And for me to see Luke Shaw, who's gone from being a laughingstock at Man United, being fat shamed, being treated like crap by Jose Mourinho, still now publicly on Talk Sport as well. It's ridiculous. And we've seen people still trying to show death threats to Jordan Pickford for injuring Virgil van Dijk, like Liverpool fans still doing that. And he's had an amazing tournament. We've seen Kieran Trippier, who's come back from being an Atletico Madrid champion, to really show a different mentality than what we've seen him before as well under Tottenham. We've seen Harry Kane come back from having poor form to being our shining light in the tournament. We haven't seen me coming back in my fantasy football league. I'm still like 35 out of 36. Yeah. It's not going to happen, but I don't really care because when I took Harry Kane out of the team in my fantasy team, he started scoring against Germany.
Same.
Yeah. It was literally that for me. I was like, it needs to be done. But I've been really happy to see, for me personally, that Germany game was something special, and I hope Italy versus England is going to be the one that caps it off for me. I think it will be. I've said before, I think it's going to be a fun game. I reckon England's going to win, and I reckon we're going to have the time of our lives. But Danny, thank you very much.
6 hours to go. 6 hours to go. Come on, England.
We killed some time with this episode, so I'm quite happy with that. 6 hours to go. I'm going to try and watch like another 2-hour film to kill some time, watch the Wimbledon final, and then just turn on to the TV later on. But Danny, as always, thanks for coming on. It's a pleasure to speak to you, as always. Everyone, thanks for watching our last little preview for the Euros. Take care, everyone, and goodbye.